How could we even create a cure for something that comes from outer space and we don't even know what it is?
Well, if that virus or that bacteria or that pathogen falls, into the three-dimensional space, there's always a solution. And don't forget, the human body is very resilient. We're not all exactly the same. So the body can mutate on its own to fight a certain pathogen. And that's how we have become such a successful species. Over, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of years, we get stronger. Our DNA changes. It learns how to make special macrophages in the white blood cells to, combat these types of pathogens and survive. And that's what we are. We're one of the toughest races in the universe, being bombarded with EMF and scalar photogrammetry and viruses and all these negative things, but we still seem to keep going. We have a very short lifespan compared to the other extraterrestrials that are out there. But that's just because they're more advanced than we are. And we're going to be there someday too.
Is there a special program by governments to try to avert these kinds of problems?
It's an ongoing thing where viruses are released accidentally, contamination occurs, outbreaks happen. It's completely kept under the blanket. That means the media is not allowed to know about it. The CDC
Well, there'd be panic.
It'd be super chaos, panic. Stock markets would crash. It would be a really horrific thing. But this happens on a daily basis. There are teams out there that will neutralize an entire base of a scientist if an outbreak happens. And if it gets to the surface, they wouldn't mind taking out a small couple city blocks to do it and just blame it on, a gas leak.
Sure. How could they be so foolish to have those kinds of accidents occur?
Well, humans have ego, and we're all in competition. And a lot of these things happen with internal espionage with agents. Most of the time, they're trying to figure out the biology of these pathogens and use it for the good and the bad. And it's very rare that they would make something bad first.
I think if governments could create pathogens that could destroy, they would be making it like crazy. I think they already do.
They do. And that being said, some of these pathogens actually can attack just certain genetic DNA, certain races.
Give us an example of this genetic attack on specific races. And have you been part of that secret program?
I wasn't part of the secret program, but I was debriefed on that program because a lot of these pathogens had come from some of the bodies that I was taking samples from. When those samples go out, they do all sorts of things. And I was always curious. After a couple of years, I was able to be debriefed on, them getting cellular material, like you said, making it into, a virus or a bacteria that can eat just that entity, that being. So that being said, they can do the same thing for us. If they just want to wipe out Caucasians, they could wipe out all the Caucasians.
Have they tested that?
Yes, they have.
And has it been effective?
Yes, they have huge underground facilities and mock cities set up larger than football fields that they actually use real people and some clones, and they release these outbreaks.
These poor people had no idea this was going to happen, obviously.
No,
right?
they'd have no idea. They've been mind swiped and they've been captured, and a lot of them have no clue whatsoever that they're even in a project because these scenarios only last less than a day, and everyone at the end is completely gassed and taken out and disposed of.
How many people have they killed?
Hundreds of thousands.
Hundreds of thousands?
Hundreds of thousands, easy. Per facility per year.
So let's say that they are aiming at Caucasians or Asians or Africans, and they just want to eliminate certain races. They have experimented on that, and it's been successful, in your opinion?
Very successful, yes.
How do we combat that?
I think there's going to be a lot more of these insiders from these projects. They're just scared to come forward, but a lot of these people are on their deathbeds, and they want to come forward, give a statement, and let the public know about this so a proper investigation can follow this.
So we need to be more concerned, it sounds like, people on this planet than extraterrestrials trying to do something to us.
Oh, 110%, George. We're more egoed and want the control and want to take over or depopulate the planet or whatever the agenda is, because by getting these contaminants and these pathogens and making these in the labs, like you said, this is a very bad biological agent that can be used in war. So of course, one corporation, can sell this to multiple countries and they wouldn't even know.
Well, we've seen cases where chemicals harmed or hurt or killed people. We saw the episode where the half-brother of the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un was sprayed by a couple people at an airport and died. So you're right. I mean, these things exist. They're out there.
Right. I mean, look what happened to Russia if you read Tom Bearden's work. I mean, there's only a few scalar weapons on the planet, and there's only a few countries that own these things.
Somebody watching Cosmic Disclosure, this program right now, what can they do when they hear these horrendous possibilities?
I'll just say there's a lot more good people on this planet, and a lot more good corporations, and a lot more white hats secretly in political areas than there are the negative people. And there's scientists that work in these projects that have developed these things forcefully or have been extorted to.
And they didn't want to do it, but
And they did
had
not
to?
want to do it, but they also are a great facilitator of making sure these things don't get out.
You think we can win this battle?
I know we'll win it. It's just a matter of time. All truth always prevails. But I don't want to install fear into the public because I know too many good things that are going on in the projects. A lot more good things are going on as far as protection for us and the elimination of these things because it's too dangerous.
By whom, though? Who's really out to protect us?
Well, the actual people that are working, in these projects, number one, they have families too. And they're not very happy about the way they're being treated.
Is there an internal fight here, Emery, between the good and the bad?
It's not an internal fight. It's the unheard heroes that are in there, being very patient, waiting for the right time, and self-sacrificing their lives, which has been done many times. Even in the Denver base, those explosions were from their own employees that were trying to take out, some of the underground facilities there a few years back. So there are a lot of white hats, and even in the political government, and even in big pharma, and these other major corporations that run the planet, that they're watching everything, and they're waiting for the right time that they can be defensive and be protective, because there's 7.5 billion people here that are at risk.
You've been in laboratories. Have you ever been asked to do something you didn't want to do?
No, my last few months, though, working in the compartmentalized labs, one of the reasons I left is because one of the bodies that came in seemed very warm, even through the suit.
Human bodies?
Well, human extraterrestrial bodies.
Okay.
We have temperature gauges all over the bodies. We know how much, what the warmth is. And it seemed to me, and it felt in my heart, that this ET kind of died unnecessarily somehow. And it was more of, feeling like this is a real conscious being that has just passed within maybe a few hours.
Or was killed?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
What did this human ET look like?
It was very tall, a little bit taller than me. I'm 6'4", so it was probably around 7 feet. It had very pale skin, very large blue eyes.
White hair?
No hair.
No hair at all?
No hair. Very small lips and a very long nose. The eyes were offset, almond shaped, but more to the side, like a little bit wider than our eye set. But for the most part, has everything that we had. The 5-star, 2 hands, 2 arms, just a very ectomorphic type of body. And ectomorph means long, lean bone. There's 3 body human somatotypes that we call, ectomorph, mesomorph, and endomorph. And this kind of tells you, how the body actually looks when we're describing things.
How did this entity die, in your opinion?
I think it died very unnatural. And it was after that time that I was becoming more conscious, and I knew it was either stay in the projects forever or go ahead and it's time to resign.
And you left.
I left.
You think that was the smart thing to do for you?
Absolutely.
You never looked back?
No, never.
Did you do anything with the government that you're not proud of?
No. I'm very proud to have worked hand in hand with some of the most amazing surgeons and physicians and scientists from around the world and from around the universe. It was a great blessing in disguise, and I kind of miss it in a way. Being responsible for multi-million-dollar equipment and being a huge asset to the military and to these projects, not knowing, that was worth that much, and then getting out and then being able to produce patents and things to help society and help the world.
Throughout the history, mankind, of course, has tried to take advantage of other human beings. They've done that all along. Can ETs do the same thing?
Well, they were once us, but let's just say they've grown up a little bit since then. So their agenda is not about, taking over and destroying. It's more about preservation and helping a society that needs help. I mean, we need help.
Sure,
I mean, look at us. Look what we're doing today, destroying the earth and destroying each other. What kind of successful society does that?
All these viruses that are on the planet right now, might they have been dumped on us? Or do you think they're planetary bound?
I think the planet, evolves. We're discovering new species every day in the oceans, in the Amazon. I mean, every day. So what's not to say, bacteria and viruses are species too, So these things are mutating and forming through all different types of reasons, which I think it's synergistically working with the stars, the stardust. I think it is happening where maybe a lot of these hybridization programs, some things do leak out. Some of these bacteria, some of the beings, escape now and then. And that will change the entire ecosystem of a planet.
These ET races, Emery, that are out there, what is their mission and their goal? Are they trying to breed us and change us or blend their DNA with us?
Well, I think a long time ago that might have been the case. I do think they were breeding us. I think they were experimenting with us. I do think we were kind of like an experiment that flourished, actually, even though there's a lot of bad things going on. As a species, I mean, look at us. We are resilient. We're like a virus. We go everywhere, infect everything, and it's a great survival capability that we have. So I think they admire that. And I think that they know that we were the first seeds, even though they made us. I think that we become them, and I think they become us.
Could they take the best of their DNA and the best of ours and combine it?
Well, absolutely. That's what's going on. It's perfecting our DNA, number one. We're trying to perfect our DNA. We're trying to do DNA tests so we know what kind of cancers we might be predisposed to, things like that, which help us learn how to do gene therapy, and help cure us. So these things are all back reverse engineered technologies and intelligence and ideas from extraterrestrials.
So you're basically saying there's a crossbreeding program that's going on universally, aren't you? We came from the ETs came from us?
Yes.
How so?
Well, just like we're interbreeding with different countries and continents and races here on Earth, don't be fooled that we wouldn't do the same thing if we were in space. The gene manipulation is not happening on like a mass production, okay? They are doing these single tests on single humans and extraterrestrials on both sides of the story here to figure out, how to improve life and how to...
Governments and ETs together?
Right. And governments, not mean governments, it just means, because governments control the military, which protects the corporations' labs. Let's put it that way. Because when people think...
there's a different agenda with that side of it.
Right. Yeah. And I think they're doing a lot of this testing, though, to more, like you said, make us superhuman, make them improve so we have telepathic communication that's easier, and also to levitate and things like this. We're all capable of amazing things. It's just we're not really turned on yet on those DNA genetic codes yet, including activating different parts of the brain to do certain things.
Maybe they're trying to build super soldiers.
Correct. Yeah, they are doing things like that to not only for soldiers, but also mixing DNA with animals and soldiers to make the ultimate combat weapon.
Emery, you've been in a laboratory, you've touched viruses, you've been all over the place. Have you ever been exposed to anything from ETs or even human viruses?
Only recombinant proteins and DNA, nothing from an actual ET. We have these very amazing suits that we wear that are very protective. We're in vacuum, negative pressure systems. So it's unlikely you'd get contaminated. It can happen. We have had incidents on the facilities where there has been a breach in the suits or in a operating room where they had to shut down that whole area.
What's the worst thing you've ever seen to somebody who has contracted some of these viruses? What happens to them?
Well, the only thing I've ever heard of, I've never seen it, that someone's suit somehow was compromised. The frequency of this virus or whatever it was so vibratory, the cells around your human body couldn't keep up with it, so it kind of like disintegrated them from the inside out.
I think the primordial soup is the same throughout the universe. So the complexity and the mixture of all of us, we're all related, I think, universally, aren't we?
Well, that's the concept here, is trying to figure out how to raise our consciousness, number one. And number two, don't forget we're all one. If you really think of it that way, and science says we are, we all have the same genetics or part of each other, even extraterrestrials. So that has definitely, led me to believe that we do have a oneness, that's connected, a same vibration, a same frequency. If we just start learning to listen to each other and communicate correctly and not get this communication mixed up, I think we all get along a little bit better.
Is there an ongoing ET genetic manipulation of our genes? Are they doing that now?
I don't think they're trying to look at us and send down any type of special energy beam or infect us with anything. I think we're evolving this way because the universe is evolving. And I believe in this morphogenic field of energy, that if there's a lot of good things going on, even getting evolved as a human being, that it's affecting us that way. Now, whether they have, their little big meditation group going on the other side of the planet, that's a good way to look at it, because it's affecting the entire universe, including us becoming more conscious and more intelligent.
Will we become superhumans because of ET manipulation?
I like to see it as this, because at one point during a telepathic communication, they believe we are the superhumans. They believe we're the superheroes of the universe because we're so resilient, we've been through so much, and we're still here, and we're not going anywhere.
Emery, thank you for being on Cosmic Disclosure.
Thank you, George, for having me.
This is Cosmic Disclosure with Emery Smith. Thanks for watching.
Coming this season.